For Your Eyes Only is a spy film and stars Roger Moore. So after the ridiculousness of James Bond going to space, the next film more or less did a soft reboot. This film went back to its early roots, focusing on a simple and grounded story. The characters became interesting again, with a few actually having layers, and while that campy tone is still around, it almost barely shows up in the film, with the exception of a few dumb moments and one specific character who is a bit annoying. This time round, the film takes a darker turn, and it's probably the first Bond film to have a real sense of seriousness to it. I must also say that this is for me my favorite of the Roger Moore Bond films. The main villain, who I think is very underrated, does pose as a menacing threat to Bond very effectively. I also liked the Bond girl in the movie, and while her acting isn't perfect, the story of her character was one of the strong driving forces of the movie, as a character who is seeking revenge for the death of her parents. The film also has what I think are some of the best action set pieces of the entire series, and yes, while it is still super obvious which stunts were done by Roger Moore and which ones weren't, I could look past them because these scenes were very well done. And they had a nice bit of tension to them that I hadn't experienced from a Bond film in a while. So it was nice to buy in that Bond might die during one of these scenes. This is also the first Bond film to be directed by John Glenn, who would go on to direct all of the 007 movies to come out in the 1980s. And while his movies from this series are a bit hit and miss, the one thing that stands out, at least to me anyway, is the way he directs his action scenes, which take a grittier and more impactful direction than previous films. And they also feel like they have a larger scale to them as well, which makes them stand out. The set piece near the end of the film where James Bond goes rock climbing to reach a cathedral is a very well shot and edited scene. Now, while I like this movie a lot, I'm not going to pretend that there's nothing wrong with it, because there are things that stick out like a sore thumb. Firstly, a majority of the music is kinda garbage, as the music makes it feel like you're watching a cheesy 80s movie. However, there are still a few music cues and pieces of the score that still work, and are actually interesting to listen to. Also, while I liked the villain played by Julian Glover, I couldn't help but feel like he was playing the same villain he played in The Last Crusade, where his character initially works with the hero, but is then revealed that he was the main bad guy the whole time. Overall, this was the Bond film that I always enjoyed when I was younger, and as I've gotten older, this has become one of my favorites. And it's a real shame that this one is generally overlooked, as it does enough things different to stand on its own. And after the near craziness of Moonraker, For Your Eyes Only is a nice step in the right direction for the Bond films to become serious and actually age with the times. Though it is still a flawed film, this is the Bond film I enjoyed almost on the same level as Goldfinger, and I'm gonna give For Your Eyes Only an 8 out of 10. Thank you so much for watching. If you like what you see, be sure to like my Facebook page, follow me on Twitter, and subscribe to my channel below. As always, I'm NETX5. Thank you for watching.